The metal chains bit into Zara's wrists like hungry serpents. She stood on the raised platform, her silver-scaled skin dulled by months of neglect, her once proud dorsal fins now hanging limp against her back. The auction hall buzzed with the excited chatter of a dozen different alien species, all gathered to bid on sentient beings like they were buying livestock. Lot 73. The auctioneer's mechanical voice boomed through the hall. One Aquarian female, age 22, standard cycles, previously owned by mining operations on Kepler 442b. Strong back, excellent for heavy labor or personal service. Zara's stomach churned at the implication. She'd heard the stories. She'd seen what happened to other Aquarians who disappeared into the personal service trade. Her gills fluttered nervously as she scanned the crowd, trying to prepare herself for whatever fresh hell awaited. The bidding started low, too low. Even in this wretched place, being valued so cheaply stung her pride. A Vorthon, with scarred tentacles, raised a clawed appendage. 500 credits! 600! Came a harsh voice from a hooded figure in the back. Zara's people had once been explorers, scientists, artists. The Aquarian homeworld had been a beacon of culture and learning until the hegemony wars 20 years ago. Now her species was scattered. Across the galaxy, most of them enslaved. Their advanced biotechnology used to enrich their captors. 700! The Vorthon's tentacles writhed with irritation. The hooded figure leaned forward slightly, and Zara caught a glimpse of pink, flesh human. Her heart sank further. Humans were relatively new to the galactic scene, having only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. Most species considered them crude, violent, and unpredictable. Whatever this human wanted with her, it probably wasn't good. 800, the human said calmly, his voice carrying clearly through the hall despite not being raised. The Vorthon's black eyes fixed on the human with obvious disgust. 1,000. Without hesitation, the human replied, 5,000. The hall fell silent. Even the auctioneer's mechanical system seemed to pause in surprise. 5,000 credits was more than most slaves sold for in a year of auctions. The Vorthon's tentacles went rigid with shock, then slowly lowered. No one else in the hall moved to counter the bid. Going once, going twice. Sold to the human in Section 12. As the gavel fell, Zara felt her legs give out slightly. The guard behind her yanked on her chain, forcing her to straighten. This was it. She was about to discover what kind of monster had just bought her for 5 times her estimated value. But as they processed the sale, and the human approached to claim his property, something strange happened. He moved through the crowd with a confidence that didn't match his species' reputation. Other aliens stepped aside, some with what looked like respect, others with poorly concealed fear. When he finally stood before her, Zara got her first clear look at her new owner. He was tall for a human, with dark skin and kind eyes that seemed completely at odds with the harsh environment of the slave market. He wore simple clothes, but they were well made, and she noticed a small device on his wrist that definitely wasn't standard human technology. "Hello, Zara," he said quietly, and her gill slits snapped shut in shock. No one had used her name in over a year. To her captors, she had been the Aquarian, or Lot 73, or simply it. How did he know her name? Chapter 2. The Journey Home. The human ship was nothing like Zara expected. From the outside, it looked like a standard mid-range transport vessel, the kind used by traders and smugglers. But the moment she stepped inside, her scientists' training kicked in and she realized this was something special. The corridors hummed with an energy signature she recognized but hadn't felt in years. Aquarian biotechnology. Her people's living ships with their organic hulls and neural network computers had been legendary throughout the galaxy. But how could a human have access to such technology? "My name is Marcus Chen," the human said, as he led her through the ship. He hadn't chained her or even restrained her. The shock of being treated like a person instead of property left her speechless. "I know you have questions. We'll talk once we're in hyperspace." The ship's bridge took her breath away. Instead of the cold metal interfaces she expected, organic. Conduits pulsed along the walls, and the control surfaces seemed to respond to Marcus's touch like living tissue. This wasn't just Aquarian technology, this was a masterwork, the kind of bioship only the greatest craftsman of her people could create. "Where are we going?" she finally managed to ask, her voice hoarse from disuse. Marcus paused in his pre-flight checks. "Sanctuary," he said simply. "A place where your people can be safe." Her people? Zara's hearts began to race. "What do you mean, my people?" But Marcus was already initiating the hyperspace sequence. The ship's living systems responded to his commands with an efficiency that suggested deep familiarity. As the stars stretched into lines and they entered the tunnel of hyperspace, he turned to face her fully. Zara Keth Andros, former researcher at the Aquarian Institute of Stellar Cartography, daughter of Commander Thane Keth Andros of the Defense Fleet. His words hit her like physical blows. "Your father saved my life once. Now I'm returning the favor." The name hit her like a tsunami. She hadn't heard her full name or her father's rank spoken aloud since the day their homeworld fell. Tears began streaming down her face, a reaction she'd thought beaten out of her long ago. "That's impossible," she whispered. "My father died in the siege of Aquarius Prime. The entire defense fleet was destroyed." Marcus's expression grew sad. Most of it was, but not all. He touched a control, and a holographic display materialized between them. It showed a star chart, but not one Zara recognized. "There's something you need to see." The display zoomed in on a system in what looked like the galactic frontier, far beyond the reach of the major powers. 3 planets orbited a stable yellow star, and one of them showed the distinctive blue-green coloration of an ocean world. "New Aquarius," Marcus said quietly. "Home to nearly 50,000 of your people. Your father helped establish it before he died. He made me promise that if I ever found survivors of your people in slavery, I would bring them home." Zara's legs gave out completely this time. She sank to the deck, overwhelmed by emotions she'd kept locked away for years. Hope was the most dangerous feeling for a slave. It made the pain of reality unbearable. But looking at this impossible star chart, hearing her father's name spoken with respect instead of as a curse, she felt something she'd thought was dead forever beginning to stir in her chest. "Why should I believe you?" she asked. But even as she said it, she realized she already did. The ship around her was proof enough. No human could have acquired and operated Aquarian biotechnology without help from her people. Marcus knelt down beside her, careful not to touch her without permission. "Because your father told me you'd ask exactly that question. He said you always needed proof before you'd accept anything as truth." He smiled, and for the first time in years, Zara saw genuine warmth in another being's eyes. "He also said you have his stubborn streak in your mother's brilliant mind." The mention of her mother broke something loose inside her. "She died in the camps on Rigel 7th, Zara said, the words coming out in a rush. "I watched her die. The hegemony forces worked her to death in the dilithium mines." "I know," Marcus said gently. "Your father told me. He carried that grief until the day he died. But he also carried hope that somewhere in the galaxy his daughter was still alive, still fighting to survive." Zara looked up at him through her tears. "How long ago did he die?" 2 years ago. He lived to see New Aquarius become truly self-sufficient. The last thing he did was make me swear to keep looking for survivors." Marcus stood and offered her his hand. "He would be so proud to know you're alive." For a moment, Zara just stared at his outstretched hand. When was the last time someone had offered to help her up instead of yanking her to her feet? When was the last time anyone had cared whether she was proud or ashamed, happy or sad? She took his hand and let him help her to her feet. "How many others have you found?" "You're the 7th. There are 3 more auctions this month that our intelligence network has identified as likely to have Aquarian captives." Marcus returned to the ship's controls. "Each rescue is dangerous. The slavers are starting to notice the pattern, and some of the major powers are getting suspicious about New Aquarius." That explained why he'd bid so aggressively at the auction. If their rescue network was being watched, he couldn't afford to let her slip away to another buyer. "Intelligence network?" Zara asked. Marcus smiled, and this time there was something almost predatory in his expression. Humans might be new to galactic politics, but we learn fast, and we've had excellent teachers. The implications of that statement would have to wait. The ship's navigation systems chimed, indicating they were approaching their destination. Through the viewports, Zara could see the swirling vortex of hyperspace beginning to resolve back into normal space. "Welcome home, Zara," Marcus said as the stars reappeared around them. And there, hanging in the void like a blue-green jewel, was a world that looked impossibly like the home she'd lost so long ago. Chapter 3. New Beginnings. New Aquaris was more beautiful than Zara had dared to imagine. As Marcus's ship descended through the atmosphere, she pressed her face to the viewport like a child seeing the ocean for the first time. Vast blue waters stretched to the horizon, broken by chains of tropical islands covered in the distinctive, silver-leafed forests of her homeworld. But it was the cities that made her cry again. They rose from the water in spiraling towers of living coral and cultivated kelp, exactly like the great cities of old Aquaris. Bioluminescent patterns pulsed along their walls in the ancient communication protocols of her people. Transport pods moved between the structures in graceful arcs, following the old architectural principles that worked with water currents instead of fighting them. "How is this possible?" she whispered. "The biotechnology to grow cities like this takes centuries to develop." "Your people brought seedlings," Marcus explained as they approached a landing platform that seemed to bloom out of the water to receive them. The survivors who escaped the homeworld carried the genetic templates for everything. The cities, the ships, even the ecosystem management systems. They've been rebuilding here for 20 years. The platform they landed on was warm and slightly yielding under their feet like walking on living tissue. Because it was living tissue, Zara realized. The entire platform was a single organism, engineered to provide exactly the services needed for spacecraft operations. A delegation waited for them at the platform's edge, and Zara's breath caught when she recognized the ceremonial robes of the science cast. She hadn't seen the formal dress of her people in so long she'd almost forgotten how beautiful it was. Flowing garments that seemed to shift color with the wearer's emotions, incorporating living bioluminescent elements that responded to the brain's electrical activity. "Zara Kethandros," said the lead figure, removing her hood to reveal an elderly Aquarian female with the distinctive cranial ridges of the teacher class. "I am Vera Neth Kolios, current speaker for the Science Council. We have waited long to welcome you home." The formal greeting nearly undid her completely. To be addressed by her full name with the proper honorifics, by someone who clearly held high rank among her own people, it was almost too much to process. "Speaker Vera," Zara managed, attempting the proper response despite her emotional state. I don't know what to say." "Then say nothing for now," Vera replied gently. "Come, let us show you what your father helped us build." As they moved through the city, Zara was amazed by how normal everything seemed. Aquarian children played in carefully maintained tidal pools, their gill slits opening and closing as they dove and surfaced in games she remembered from her own childhood. Adults moved through the coral corridors on their daily business, many of them engaged in work she recognized: bioengineering, stellar cartography, cultural preservation. It was like stepping back in time, except for one crucial difference. Everywhere she looked, she saw other species working alongside her people. Humans, yes, but also Centauri engineers, Deltan artists, even a few of the reclusive Christine philosophers who rarely interacted with other species. "We learned something from the fall of our homeworld," Vera explained, noticing her confusion. "Isolation makes us vulnerable. Here we build alliances. We share our knowledge and others share theirs." They passed a workshop where an Aquarian biotech specialist was working with a human engineer to modify what looked like a standard fusion reactor. The human's crude but effective mechanical approach, combined with Aquarian organic technology, was producing something neither species could have created alone. "The humans have been particularly valuable allies," Vera continued. "They bring perspectives that challenge our assumptions, and their rapid adaptation abilities complement our Methodical approaches perfectly. That was high praise from an Aquarian. Zara's people valued careful planning and thorough research above almost everything else. To acknowledge another species as complementary was essentially admitting they were equals. Marcus mentioned intelligence. Networks, Zara said. Are you talking about military cooperation? Vera's expression grew serious. Among other things, the galaxy is not a safe place for small independent colonies, especially one populated by former slaves. We've had to learn to defend ourselves. They emerged onto a balcony overlooking the harbor, and Zara gasped at what she saw. Dozens of ships floated in the bio-constructed berths below, but they weren't the purely organic vessels of traditional Aquarian design. These ships combined organic hulls with technological systems she didn't recognize, creating hybrids that seemed to pulse with barely contained energy. Joint human-Aquarian design, Vera said proudly. Faster than anything else in this sector, nearly impossible to detect when properly configured, and capable of operating in environments that would destroy conventional ships. A terrible thought occurred to Zara. You're not just rescuing slaves, are you? You're fighting back. Vera's smile had sharp edges. The hegemony destroyed our homeworld and enslaved our people. They continue to hunt us across the galaxy. Did you think we would simply hide here and hope they never found us? Before Zara could respond, Marcus appeared beside them. The council is ready for her, Speaker Vera. Council? Zara asked. The full leadership council of New Aquarius wants to meet with you, Vera explained. Your rescue was not random, Zara Kethandros. We have been searching for you specifically for over 3 years. Now Zara was truly confused. Why? I'm nobody special. I was just a junior researcher before the war. Vera and Marcus exchanged a look that suggested they knew something she didn't. Come, Vera said. Let the council explain. Your father left something for you, and it's time you learned what he really did during the war. As they walked deeper into the city, Zara felt like she was moving toward answers to questions she didn't even know she should be asking. But she also felt something else, something she'd almost forgotten after years of slavery and despair. She felt like she was finally home. Chapter 4. The Legacy. The council chamber was grown rather than built, its walls a living tapestry of coral and engineered kelp that pulsed with gentle bioluminescence. 12 figures sat in the traditional circle of leadership, representing not just the various castes of Aquarian society, but also several allied species. Zara recognized the formal arrangement from her childhood studies, but seeing it implemented, here, on a world that shouldn't exist, filled her with wonder. Zara Kethandros, announced the figure at the circle's head, an ancient Aquarian whose ceremonial scars marked him as a veteran of the old wars. I am Theros Vecnatal, first speaker of New Aquarius. I served under your father during the final defense of our homeworld. The mention of her father sent another wave of emotion through her, but she managed to maintain her composure. First, Speaker, I am honored by this gathering, but I don't understand why. Because of this, Theros interrupted, gesturing to an aide who brought forward a sealed biocontainer. The organic seals responded to his touch, opening to reveal something that made Zara's heart stop beating. It was her father's command crystal, the bio-neural storage device that every senior military officer carried. She'd thought it was destroyed with his ship during the siege. Your father didn't die in the siege, Theros said gently. He died here 2 years ago, after 20 years of service to our people's survival. But before he died, he sealed his memories and knowledge in this crystal. He was waiting for you to claim it. Zara stared at the crystal with a mixture of longing and terror. Command crystals didn't just store data, they contained the personality patterns, memories, and even emotional responses of their owners. Accessing one was like communing with the dead. What did he know that was so important? She asked. Another council member leaned forward, a human woman with the distinctive cybernetic implants of a military intelligence officer. He knew about the hegemony's greatest secret, and about humanity's role in the coming war. The human's words sent a chill through the chamber. Coming war? Zara asked. Marcus stepped into the circle, his casual demeanor falling away to reveal something harder underneath. The hegemony isn't just expanding randomly. They're preparing for something big, something that requires massive numbers of slaves, unprecedented resource extraction, and the elimination of any independent technological base that might threaten them. We believe they've made contact with something from outside our galaxy, added a Centauri representative, her multiple arms gesturing at holographic displays that materialized around the chamber. Something that has them scared enough to risk galactic war. The displays showed shipping routes, resource flows, and population movements across hegemony space. The pattern was clear once you knew what to look for: a massive military buildup disguised as economic expansion. Your father discovered this pattern during his intelligence work, Theros explained. But he also discovered something else. Humanity wasn't randomly discovered by galactic civilization 50 years ago. They were found and contacted specifically because someone knew what was coming. Zara felt like the chamber was spinning around her. Who contacted humanity? We think it was the ancients, said the Centauri. The species that disappeared from the galaxy over 1 million years ago, leaving behind only ruins and warnings about something they called the Great Devouring. Every spacefaring species knew about the ancients. Their abandoned cities dotted worlds throughout the galaxy, and their technology was so advanced that even understanding their basic principles had driven several civilizations to unprecedented heights. But they had vanished completely, leaving behind only cryptic warnings about dangers from beyond the galactic rim. Humanity's rapid technological development isn't natural, Marcus said. We've been guided, prepared, turned into something the galaxy needs to survive what's coming. And my father knew this? More than knew it, Theros replied. He was part of the preparation. New Aquarius isn't just a refugee settlement. It's a fortress, a research station, and a training ground all in one. We've been developing weapons and tactics specifically designed to fight enemies unlike anything the galaxy has seen. The biocrystal in its container seemed to pulse with warm light, as if responding to the conversation. Zara realized that her father hadn't just saved some knowledge for her. He'd saved himself in a way. All his experiences, his insights, his love for her, waiting in crystalline storage for the day she would be ready to receive them. What happens if I accept this? She asked. What happens if I access the crystal? You become part of the war effort, Vera said simply. Your father's knowledge combined with your own research skills could help us understand what we're really facing. But you would also become a target. The hegemony has agents everywhere, and if they learn what you know... Zara looked around the chamber at the faces of people who had suffered as she had suffered, who had lost everything as she had lost everything, but who had somehow found the strength to fight back. She thought about the slaves still trapped in the system she'd escaped from, about the world still under hegemony control, about the children who would grow up in chains if no one stood against the darkness. My father was a military officer, she said finally. I'm a scientist, but if there's a war coming, maybe that's exactly what you need. She reached for the crystal with steady hands. The moment her fingers touched its surface, it flared with brilliant light, and suddenly her father's presence filled her mind like a warm embrace. Hello, my daughter, his voice whispered in her thoughts. I have so much to tell you. As the crystal's knowledge flowed into her consciousness, Zara understood, for the first time, the true scope of what they were facing. The hegemony was just the beginning. Beyond the galaxy's edge, something vast and hungry was stirring, something that had devoured entire galactic clusters and was now turning its attention toward them. But she also felt her father's unshakable confidence, his absolute certainty that the galaxy's diverse species working together could find a way to survive. Humanity's chaotic creativity, Aquarian biotechnology, Centauri mathematical precision, and dozens of other specialized abilities, all combined into a force that could stand against the darkness. When the crystal's download finished, Zara opened her eyes to find the entire council watching her with expressions of hope and fear. Well? Asked Theros. Zara smiled, and for the first time in years, it felt completely genuine. We have work to do. Outside the chamber, Marcus waited for her, with obvious concern. How do you feel? Like I finally understand why I survived, she replied. All those years in chains, all that suffering, it was preparing me for this moment. And what moment is that? Zara looked out through the chamber's living walls at the city her people had built, at the ships being constructed in the harbor, at the children playing in the tidal pools who might grow up free because of what they were about to do. The moment we stop running and start fighting back. Epilogue: The Rising Tide. 6. Months after Zara's homecoming, the rescue ship, Persistence, dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Vega system. In its bioconstructed hold, 23 former slaves from 7 different species waited nervously for their first glimpse of freedom. Zara stood on the bridge beside Marcus, watching the approach to New Aquarius, with eyes that had learned to see hope where once there had been only despair. The city had grown in the months since her arrival, new towers spiraling up from the ocean floor as more refugees arrived and the population expanded. Contact from Harbor Control, reported the ship's communications officer, a young human woman who had volunteered for the dangerous rescue missions. They're requesting passenger manifest for processing. Tell them we're bringing home heroes, Zara replied, keying up the display that showed the tactical information they'd gathered during their mission. An intelligence that could change everything. The hegemony was moving faster than anyone had anticipated. 3 more star systems had fallen under their control in the past month, and the pattern of resource extraction was accelerating. But they'd also made a mistake. They'd started using ancient technology, artifacts recovered from dead worlds and incorporated into their military systems, which meant the ancients' warnings were more than just myth. Something really was coming from beyond the galaxy, and the hegemony either knew about it or was being manipulated by it. How long until we can mount a real offensive? Marcus asked, studying the star charts that showed hegemony expansion routes. Sooner than you think, Zara replied, touching the command crystal that now hung around her neck. Her father's memories had revealed the locations of several ancient cache sites, hidden repositories of technology that had been waiting for the right moment to be discovered. We just need to wake up some old allies. Through the ship's viewports, New Aquarius grew larger, its bioluminescent cities pulsing with welcoming light. In the harbor, she could see the new ships, not just the hybrid human Aquarian designs, but vessels incorporating technology from all their allied species, fast, deadly, and built for a war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The hegemony thinks we're just escaped slaves hiding on the frontier, Zara said, as the Persistence settled onto its living landing platform. They have no idea what they're really facing. Marcus smiled the predatory smile she'd learned to associate with humans at their most dangerous. Should we tell them? Zara watched the rescued beings disembarking, saw their wonder at finding not just safety but purpose, not just freedom, but the chance to fight for something greater than themselves. Each rescue brought new skills, new perspectives, new reasons to ensure that what had happened to them would never happen to anyone else. No, she said finally. Let them find out the hard way. Above them, the first of the new warships was lifting. Off on its maiden voyage, its hybrid biomechanical systems humming with barely contained power. It carried a crew of volunteers from a dozen species, all united by a simple understanding. The galaxy was worth fighting for, and they would never again allow tyrants to steal the freedom of the innocent. The war was coming whether they wanted it or not, but this time they would be ready. This time, they would win. The end.